So we'll do that. But I thought I would jump in here and we'll start reading this little article because this one's a doozy. I haven't read it, but just the title alone caught my attention. It says, feminist artist, or excuse me, not artist, feminist author pushes nude models for children to make them relaxed about their sexuality. So we're going to jump in and read this. But before we do, just please remember to hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and check me out on Parler, BitChute, and DLive. DLive is where I'm going to be streaming some future debates. And I think what I'm going to plan on doing also is on election night, streaming the election on DLive. If I try to do it on YouTube, they'll shut me down. So you guys should find me on DLive, SJG Perspective, and subscribe to me there. It's a great little that you can get an app for it on your phone, and it's a great little place to go because they don't have the censorship issues that YouTube seems to have. So anyways, jumping in here. It says, feminist author pushes nude models for children to make them relaxed about sexuality because nothing screams children books, or nothing screams what we need to do to our children more than to make them relaxed about their sexuality when they're babies and they're young little kids. We need to let them relax about their sexuality because it's all about sexualizing our children. If you haven't read the memo, if you haven't got the new woke memo, it is important that like drag queens and that we have little, 6 and 7 and 8 year olds dressing up like drag queens and getting dollars, doing little strip teases for adults, having drag queens pose naked with kids. I mean, it's an important thing that's happening in our society and we need to get behind it. You need to be more progressive because it really is something that is important. So, I mean, hey, writing a children's book how to have feminist sex. I mean, that's important for children to read. Am I right? Am I right? Flo Perry, that can't be a real name, a feminist author based out of London, is pushing the idea that nude models should pose in front of children in order to make them more relaxed about sexual matters. Because we want to make children relaxed about sexual matters. That's important. Perry debated her position during an appearance on Good Morning Britain. So that's like Good Morning America. And I don't know what this is going to say, but I hope they pissed all over this. And I'm talking special kind of asparagus pissed all over this idea. Like, the kind where you just eat some asparagus and it just makes your pee really stinky. I hope that is what this article is going to tell us they did to this Flo Perry. Because that's what she needs. She needs an asparagus golden shower on this idea. On Good Morning Britain against journalist Mariella Frostrup. And you're going to find out about me. I mess up names all the time. It's just what I do. Who believes it is inappropriate to expose kids to gratuitous nudity. Well, that person's definitely not with the times and woke enough. If she thinks it's gratuitous to expose kids to sexual stuff, that's just weird. We have to examine our own reaction to that and think, why do we have that reaction? Oh, okay, sorry. I missed a line. While appearing on the broadcast, Perry said, naked strangers is this big word. Nobody's going to be like, put my kids in form of naked strangers. I think they meant to say in front. We have to examine our own reactions to that and think, why do we have that reaction? The disgusting thing is, it's because nudity is so sexualized in our culture. And actually, if we were exposed to it in a different form, will it make us more relaxed about nudity and our own bodies and make us feel less self-conscious, she added. No, what it does is it desensitizes children to sexuality like you fake camo pedos, and the ones that are even out of the closet pedos want to do. It's what this psychotic leftist progressive, far leftist ideology thinks is okay and is being what is tolerant. We need tolerance. We need to breed tolerance into her and diversity, and we need to just breed this into our kids. It's about sexualizing and damaging our children and getting us one step closer to just coming out of the closet and adding to the alphabet, the LGBTQ alphabet, the pedo, the P for pedo, or for same sex, or for what do they call it? Minor children attraction, MCA, or minor attraction syndrome, or whatever. They make some nice, they try to make some nice little sweet acronym or word about how being a pedo is okay. Being a pedo is okay, apparently, with these people. And to me, there's nothing in the world that makes this okay. And I think anybody who thinks that's okay should be locked up, quite frankly, or shipped to an island where they can just be by themselves. Just ship them off to an island. We don't need you in society if you think sexualizing our kids is an okay thing to do. We don't want you. We don't need you. Call me a bigot. I'll take the big B word. I'll be called a bigot. I don't give a shit if you call me a bigot, or if you call me closed-minded, or if you call me whatever it is you want to call me. If you think it's okay to sexualize kids, we don't need you around. Viewers of the program were not buying Perry's argument, thank God, and angrily responded on social media with a flood of posts against her stance to expose children to nude adults. Get the hippie woman that wants to exploit children off the TV. Her credentials need to be checked when she supports such a ridiculous and dangerous class. One viewer wrote, I'm an artist. I am happy for my kids to draw nudes, but when they are older. I was 17, 18 when I first started life drawings. Another viewer wrote, the nude paintings I have in my home, my kids still sneer at them and giggle. They're 9 years old. They have no contemplation yet on body image. Put a naked man and woman in front of a class, they would be laughing their heads off. You only have to mention a body part and they're off. A third viewer wrote, my 12-year-old daughter has said that her sexual class is more than adequate for teaching positive body image. A fourth viewer wrote, she also says she'd be extremely worried if a mom allowed her to sit in a room with a half-naked stranger. Foster put Perry in check with some common sense while debating with her on the topic, debating with her, on the topic during the popular British morning show. That last comment probably wasn't needed, my bad. At primary school age, it potentially isn't necessarily the most productive way to get them to think about body image, she said. There are all kinds of ways we can approach it, and I think talking is probably one of the key ones. The left is always devising new ways to sexualize children, from drag queen story hour to teen magazines promoting anal sex to masturbating lessons for 6-year-olds and much more. We'll have to pull some of those up. The left out to warp the souls of the children in their war to... The left is out, they forgot the word is. The left is out to warp the souls of the children in their war to destroy traditional morality. Amen to that. So we're all familiar with this little story, I'm pretty sure. We've seen it a million times. But this is just another example. Busted. Another drag queen sexual predator found grooming children in Texas elementary school. Look at that. How can anybody in their right GD mind think that it is in any way, shape, or form okay in any stretch of the imagination to do this? To promote your child to be a drag queen, but then, like, if you can see up here, I don't know if my cursor shows up. Yeah, it does. If you can see up here, to have him, who's dressed up like a her, posed with a full-on naked dude that has to pixelate his junk so it isn't a pornographic, shot. Because it went on some magazine. It went all over these different magazines and whatnot. He has to pixelate his junk, but it's okay for him to pose, being all dressed up like a woman. This dude that's got a sausage, he's got a penis, and he's going to be hanging out with this little 8-year-old or 7-year-old at the time, maybe 9-year-old little boy dressed up like a girl. And how do his parents, still have custody if they allow that to happen? It blows me away. Then you have these up here, these drag queens with little kids sitting on their laps, because they like little kids sitting on their laps. It's special. Another sexual predator has been found grooming children at a drag queen story hour. This story's old. It's about a month old. Another sexual predator has been found grooming children at a drag queen story hour events in Texas, this time at an elementary school in Austin. David Robinson, whose drag queen's name is Miss Kitty Litter. What the hell, too? Can you please, Miss Kitty Litter? I mean, it's fitting. It's fitting. You are equivalent to Kitty Litter. I mean, okay, I guess I can give you that. But Miss Kitty Litter, really? ATX, read stories to children at the black. And how do you say that? How do you like, all right, everybody sit down. Miss Kitty Litter is going to sit down and read us a story today. It's going to be super special. She's going to read us a story about the sexual, how to sexually pose with yourself to be encouraging proper body image and stuff. And it's going to be special. So just sit down. We'll let everyone sit on her lap when she's done. But you just sit down and enjoy this little time with this crazy person that's me. It's a male dressed up as a female. We're just trying to confuse the hell out of you and get you sexualized. That's what we're trying to do. So just sit down and enjoy it. Read stories to the children of the Blackshear Fine Arts Academy on October 7th. The school district apparently knew about Robinson's record as a sex offender before allowing him to speak to the children while cross-dressing as well. Robinson told school librarian Roger Grape, what the hell is with these names? Roger Grape? Oh, of course you're a librarian. Roger Grape that he feared he would not pass a background check because the guidelines for submission automatically disqualify me if the deferred adjudication for prostitution is considered a conviction. So I don't know if it's ethical to submit. According to internal documents within the school, I feel it's appropriate to throw a lisp in there anytime I'm talking about this stuff. Sorry. Oddly enough, he was allowed to speak to the children. The Austin Intermediate School District assured parents that Robinson was properly screened despite his history as a sex offender. Despite his history as a male prostitute dressed up like a woman that he got arrested for. Despite that, he's allowed to sit down and read drag queen story hour to the kids. And I'm the asshole because I think that's completely inappropriate and gross and weird and totally not right. Would you just let Mr. Pervo down the street, Mr. John, who just got picked up for, getting an old BJ from the local corner crackhead crack whore? Would you crack? Would you be okay with that? Just invite him on into your house, sit down, read my kid a book. Hey, I'm gonna go take a shower. Do you mind reading my kid a book when he falls asleep? No, I get it. That's a little over the top. It's not quite the same thing, but it's kind of the same thing. Would you expose him to that? No, but it's totally fine to expose him to somebody who's apparently, or that it's to a child's mind is going to be like, is that a man or a woman? I think that's a man, but dressed up like a woman. What is this, mommy? The whole purpose, again, it's sexualizing. It's deviancy. It's corrupting our children. And it's evil and it's gross and it's sick and it's wrong. And I can't believe we're even having this debate in society. Well, I can believe it, but it's sad that I can believe it. According to the email sent to parents, Texas Values points out the reading event was scheduled to take place at 11 a.m. and all readers had been screened by Austin ISD. Previously, an Austin school on the other side of the district featured a drag queen who put makeup on children all day despite not being licensed to do so. So, wasn't a licensed cosmetologist and was allowed to be dressed up like a woman when he's a man and put makeup on children. That seems perfectly okay. The most liberal city in Texas seems to be emerging as a vanguard for the pedo acceptance movement. In October, the AISD approved new sexual education standards called Dream Scenario for Pedophiles. They gave children pointers on how to perform anal sex and encouraging them to get abortions without their parents' consent. I'd like to read that article. Big League Politics reported on the Gomorrah-esque hellscape that is developing in the Lone Star State. An Austin Independent School District approved the standards unanimously last month. At the meeting where it was approved, over 100 people made their voices heard about the standards. Pro-child advocates faced off with the depraved LGBT activists who are delighted about the success of their efforts to corrupt the souls of our youth. One page from the new sex ed standards will give children tips about the best way to have anal sex, because there's nothing that screams appropriateness like teaching a kid about anal sex. It tells children to eschew myths about anal sex and that if you get ready the right way, it doesn't need to hurt and won't cause health issues, adding that many people enjoy it. Silly. Another page from the new sex ed standards encourages children to receive birth control and abortions without their parents' consent. After you turn 14, you can get medical care like birth control, STI tests, and abortions without your parents finding out. It's confidential and you don't need their permission, the curriculum explains. The AISD had to scrap its previous sex ed plan because it had been formed in conjunction with abortion providers, which was made illegal by the state legislature in 2018. They decided to instead consult the LGBT rights group to evade the ban. Planned Parenthood is very pleased at the results. On behalf of Planned Parenthood and our review of these lessons, they are LGBTQ inclusive and comprehensive, and we support all your efforts in leadership tonight, said Sarah Wheat, Chief External Affairs Officer for Planned Parenthood in Texas. 2 other sexual predators were found to be administering Drag Queen Story Hour also events in Houston earlier this year. Don't believe me? Let's take a look. I'm reading a lot of these articles just to drive home the fact of how absolutely jacked up we are living. And it's not getting much press unless you look for it. Because most people have enough common sense to say, what the f is this? And really scream out about it. And when you do scream out about it, immediately though, like when these few people find these articles and they put them up or these videos, all of a sudden, you are called the worst bigot. You are intolerant. You are homophobic. What does even homophobic mean? I'm not scared of gay people. I just don't want your agenda shoved down my throat. What homophobic? I love how they put phobic on the end of anything that they just want to shame somebody on. They just want to shame. The tolerant left loves to shame. They are the most intolerant, by the way. And we're intolerant. They consider us intolerant if we think sexualizing our kids and having people who are struggling with mental illness, these transvestites and these drag queens, these drag queens, influence our children. I know I'm beating a dead horse here. Get it? I'm beating a dead bull right now. Bull horns. After reviewing the Houston Public Library's allowed a sex offender to groom children at a controversial Drag Queen Story Hour program, the Houston Mass Resistant Whistleblower Group has found that another pedophile has been given intimate access to young children at these perverted events. Houston Mass Resistance uncovered that William Travis Dees, who is a member of a drag queen called the Space City Sisters, has been participating in Drag Queen Story Hour events in the town. Dees is a child sex offender who brags about his time as a transgender prostitute. He was photographed at a Drag Queen Story Hour event carrying a rubber chicken, a symbol used by homosexuals to indicate a sexual preference for younger boys. The Houston Mass Resistance wrote in a post, Dee's stage name is Lisa Lott. Lisa Lott, you know what I'm saying? And he has served as a greeter during Story Hour to give himself special access to the children and their parents. And as their parents usher them in to have their souls warped. Houston Mass Resistant activists uncovered records showing Dees once victimized children as young as 4 years old with his vicious assaults. Dees was convicted in 2004 of sex crimes against 4 young children, 4, 5, 6, and 8, was jailed, and is listed as a high-risk sex offender. But it's okay to have him in the Drag Queen Story Hour. And I read these to say, like I said before, these aren't isolated incidences. This isn't just some isolated incidents that's happened once or twice, and it just somebody slipped through the cracks, no pun intended. They just slipped through the cracks and they got in. This is happening far too much than it should. And that's even to say it shouldn't be happening at all, because we shouldn't have drag queens reading to our children. This is madness, people. Making matters even worse, the Space City Sisters drag group also engages in open blasphemy, mocking the Catholic Church publicly while celebrating degeneracy and gender bending. They are part of a national network of heretics called the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, which also targets kids at Drag Queen Story Hour events. The men dress as garish and hideous parodies of Catholic nuns and mock Catholicism. They are a popular feature in gay pride parades and at other LGBT events across the country. They now also do Drag Queen Story Hour reading to small children. Houston Mass Resistance wrote, Dee's blog, What I Learned as a Trans Dominatrix, gives a glimpse into the warped mindset of this mentally ill predator. Well, what does she say in this? Just having a history lesson right now, guys. One that we maybe didn't want to have, but we're having it. Because it's important that we realize how prevalent this is becoming and how we're trying to normalize this. They're trying to normalize this. And you see it in every show you watch on Netflix. You see it on cartoons now. You see it in every movie that comes out. This kind of mentality of this transgenderism and all this other, it's just becoming normalized. If you're an adult and this is what you want to do with other adults in adult spaces on adult time, have at it, man. Do your thing. But when you start bringing children into it, when you start bringing young children into it and pushing it on them and encouraging them into this lifestyle, when kids are already confused enough and don't even know what they want to be or who they are, and it takes a lot, people's minds aren't even, done developing till they're 25 years old, especially when they're these young adolescents and whatnot, and you're pushing hormones on them, you're pushing chemical castration, you're pushing this insidious agenda on them as children. You're a terrible human being that should have no access to any children. And that includes if you are a parent, in my opinion, which is going to catch me some flack. And I don't give a crap. If you're going to push your kids into this direction when they're already confused enough, to me, it's like, I'm just so pissed off about it. This video is for sure getting deleted by YouTube. What I learned as a trans dominatrix. How I learned to survive as a trans woman and sex worker. I knew before I came out and I began my transition that I would most likely have to do some form of sex work in order to survive. I had to resolve myself to the fact that this would probably be part of my future as a trans woman, because it might be difficult to be gainfully employed if my identity didn't match what people perceived when they met me. This is unfortunately common among people in my community. Beginning a life in sex work wasn't even the hard part. I had to try for so many years to alleviate my depression and dysphoria through random sex. So right now, he is saying I have had so many mental issues surrounding this that I had to try to alleviate my depression and dysphoria through random sex. When I get pissed off at this, I don't hate these people like you just, their lifestyle. Yeah, it does. It's like, I find it completely and totally broken. Like you are a broken person if that's the life that you're choosing. And they all but admit it when they say they're dealing with hardcore depression, they have hardcore dysphoria, so on and so forth. And when you also look at the suicide rate of transgender people, it is, I think, higher than, I want to say it's higher than returning vets, which is off the charts. It's like 47% of people they have within their community, 47% suicide rate. And that rate doesn't change much pre and post surgery. So it's a mental issue. For 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it was considered to be a mental disorder that people needed counseling and help on, therapy to understand and to get through. And now we're just totally saying, well, no, it's not. Now it's just you. We need to praise you and worship you and bow down. And we just need to pretend like you're not somebody that's listening to voices in the back of the room. Crazy Uncle Joe in the back of the room talking to himself, hearing voices. That is, we all look at that and we go, oh man, that person's crazy. The poor guy, man, he's a little schizo, right? Schizophrenia is still considered a mental disorder. Gender dysphoria now is considered just something that people are, and we just need to encourage it. Instead of saying, whoa, let's look into this a little bit and see maybe where, where the disconnect happened. Anyways, I don't really actually want to read all of this. It says, my main experience with sex work was as a professional dominatrix, so that will be my primary focus for the story. I infrequently performed on-camera sex work with other trans women and prostituted myself once or twice, but I'll leave those things to someone who may know that life more intimately. Flexibility is essential. Whatever rules you have are probably going to be broken at some point, so on and so forth. So she literally goes on, I'm not calling it him or she. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. Not in this scenario. It's just really ultimately messed up and sad that these people are going through this. But pulling it back, full circle back that started all this rabbit hole, this divergence down the rabbit hole, is when you have children involved and you're pushing this or normalizing this on them, it is terrible. And this should be condemned on all fronts. So that was my first segment. And I'm going to do another one here, but I appreciate everybody who watched this and stuck out. Without fear or animus, it's SJG Perspective, and we will see you again really soon.